Hey guys, today I bring you an incredible story that will give you goosebumps. Let's learn about the experience of Evangeline Prescott, a mother who, after a car accident, had a near-death experience and received a mysterious alert about August 28, 2024. What did she see? What does this day hold for the future? Stay until the end to discover the details of this stunning reveal. And if you like exciting stories full of mystery, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Hello, my name is Evangeline Prescott. I know it may seem like a somewhat unusual name, but it's the name my parents chose for me. I'm 35 years old and a single mother to a wonderful boy called Rylan, who is 11 years old. We live in Asheville, North Carolina, a beautiful city surrounded by mountains. A lot of people come here looking for peace, you know? But peace is something I haven't felt in a long time. My life took a complete turn when my marriage ended. I loved my ex-husband with all my heart. But sometimes love isn't enough. Something broke between us. Something that couldn't be fixed. Since the divorce, I've been on my own to raise Rylan. It's not easy, I'll tell you. I work 2 jobs to be able to support ourselves. Rylan is everything to me, and I would do anything for him. But I'm not going to lie. It's hard. I'm always tired, both physically and emotionally. I can't remember the last time I had a good night's sleep. I live on the edge, but I always try to smile for my son. He deserves the best from me, even if I feel broken inside. I've never been much of a believer in spiritual things. To be honest, I never gave it much thought. But something happened to me. Something that completely changed the way I see the world. That's what I want to tell you about today. It all started on an ordinary night. I had just gotten off my second job feeling exhausted as ever. I drove home along the same road as always, the one I already knew by heart. But that night something went wrong. Something I never imagined could happen to me. I was so tired that my eyes could barely stay open. For a second, just a second, they closed. When I opened them again, it was too late. The car left the road and I hit a tree. It all happened very quickly. One moment I was driving, the next everything went dark. What happened next? Well, it's hard to explain. It's hard to even believe. But it was real as I'm here now telling you. It was an experience that changed my life forever. A journey to a place where logic makes no sense, where time folds in on itself, and where the line between life and death is thinner than a thread of silk. And it was in this strange and wonderful place that I received a warning. A warning I can't ignore, no matter how much I sometimes want to. It's about this experience, about this warning, and about how it completely changed my view of the world that I want to share with you. Because what I saw, what I experienced, is something that needs to be told. You know those days when you feel completely exhausted, like you're carrying the world on your shoulders? That's how I felt that night. I had just left my second job. It was after midnight. My body was begging for rest, but I knew I still had to get home. Check if Rylan was okay, prepare his lunch for the next day. The list seemed endless. I got into the car feeling every muscle in my body hurt. I turned on the radio quietly, hoping the music would keep me awake during the ride. The road was deserted at that hour, only the streetlights illuminating the way. I knew that route like the back of my hand, every turn, every sign. I thought I could walk that path with my eyes closed, and that's when everything went wrong. I don't know exactly how much time has passed. It could have been a second, it could have been more. My eyes closed, too heavy to stay open. When I opened them again, I saw headlights illuminating the side of the road. My heart raced. I tried to turn the steering wheel, hit the brakes, do something, anything. But it was too late. The impact was violent. I felt the car being thrown forward. The sound of writhing metal filled my ears. The airbag exploded in my face with such force that for a moment I thought I had broken my nose. Glass shattered around me, falling like sharp, glittering rain. Everything happened so fast, but at the same time it seemed to be in slow motion. I remember thinking about Rylan, feeling a tightness in my chest when I imagined him alone. And then, darkness. I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I woke up, I was no longer in the car. In fact, it was nowhere that I could recognize. It was as if he was floating in a dark, infinite void. I didn't feel any pain. I didn't really feel anything. It was a strange sensation, as if my body had ceased to exist. For a moment, I thought she was dead. The thought should have scared me, but strangely, I felt calm. It was as if all the worries, all the responsibilities I carried had simply disappeared. But then, something started to change. The darkness around me began to transform. It was no longer a void, but a place. A strange and scary place, but definitely a place. And that's when I realized, this wasn't death. It was something different, something I could never have imagined. I was about to embark on a journey that would change my life forever. A journey through a world that challenged everything I thought I knew about life and death. And it all started at that moment, floating in the darkness, not knowing what would come next. As darkness began to take shape, I found myself in a place that seemed like something out of a nightmare. It was a vast, shadowy space, neither hot nor cold, just empty. The air, if I can call it that, felt thick, as if it was thick with sadness and regret. As my eyes adjusted, I began to notice shapes moving around me. At first I thought they were shadows, but I soon realized they were figures. People, or at least something that once was people. They wandered aimlessly, their eyes empty and lifeless. I tried to get their attention, shout, wave, anything. But it was as if I didn't exist for them. I watched these lost souls for what seemed like an eternity. They didn't speak. They didn't make any sound. They just wandered, as if they were trapped in a dream they couldn't wake up from. Seeing that filled me with a deep sadness. I wanted to help them, but I didn't know how. It was then that I noticed a different figure approaching. Unlike the other lost souls, this one seemed to have a purpose, walking directly towards me. When he got close enough, my heart skipped a beat. It was my grandfather, who had passed away years ago. He looked exactly as I remembered, tall, with gray hair, and that kind smile that always made me feel safe. His eyes shone with a wisdom I didn't remember seeing when he was alive. "Grandfather?" I whispered, barely believing what I saw. He smiled and nodded. "Hello, my dear Evangeline." His voice was exactly as I remembered, warm and comforting. I wanted to run and hug him, but something told me that wasn't possible in this strange place. "Where are we, Grandpa?" I asked, looking around at the lost souls. He followed my gaze and his face became serious. "This is a place between places, Evangeline, a limbo, you could say. These souls, you see, they are trapped here, living out their regrets and fears over and over again." I looked again at the wandering figures and felt a shiver. "This is horrible. Can't we help them?" My grandfather shook his head sadly. "Unfortunately, no. They need to find their own way. But you, my dear, you do not belong here." His words filled me with relief, but also with confusion. If I don't belong here, why am I seeing all this? Because you are on a journey, Evangeline. A journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth. What you are seeing here is a warning, a reminder of what happens when we lose ourselves in our fears and regrets. I looked again at the wandering souls and felt a tightness in my chest. How many times had I felt lost, trapped in a cycle of worries and regrets? It was scary to think that it could have ended like this if things had been different. "What should I do, Grandpa?" I asked, feeling small and scared. He smiled gently and pointed to something in the distance. Following his gesture, I noticed a faint light shining on the horizon. It was faint, but unmistakable in the darkness that surrounded us. "Follow the light, my dear. It will guide you where you need to go." I looked back at my grandfather, hesitant to leave him. "Aren't you coming with me?" He shook his head. "My role here is just to guide you at the beginning of the journey. The rest of the way you need to travel alone." With one last comforting smile, my grandfather began to disappear. I wanted to scream, ask him to stay, but I knew it was useless. I was alone again. But now I had a purpose, a direction. I looked once again at the lost souls around me, feeling a mixture of pity and determination. I wouldn't end up like them. I took a deep breath and started walking towards the distant light, not knowing what awaited me, but certain that it was the path I needed to follow. I walked towards that light for a time I cannot define. It could have been minutes, hours, or even days. In that strange place, time seemed to have no meaning. As I progressed, the darkness around me began to dissipate, like fog in the morning sun. Little by little, I started to feel something different. It was as if a weight was being lifted from my shoulders, as if each step freed me a little more from the worries and fears I carried. The feeling was indescribable, a mixture of relief, peace, and a joy I hadn't felt in years. And then, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. The darkness dissipated completely, and I found myself in a place of beauty that defies description. It was a beach, but not like any beach I had ever seen before. The sand was a pure, sparkling white, almost as if it were made of thousands of tiny diamonds. The sea stretched as far as the eye could see, its waters so deep and crystalline blue that it seemed unreal. The sky was something from another world. It was a shade of blue I had never seen before, dotted with clouds that looked like they were hand-painted. And the light? It was diffuse and soft, enveloping everything in a golden glow that made every detail seem magical. I took a few tentative steps into the sand, marveling at the feeling beneath my feet. It was soft and warm, but not uncomfortably hot. Each grain seemed to vibrate with its own energy, as if it were alive. The waves gently crashed onto the beach. Their sound was like soft, comforting music. The breeze was light and carried a sweet scent that I couldn't identify. It was like a mix of flowers, sea, and something else, something that made me think of home and safety. As I walked along the beach, I noticed I wasn't alone. In the distance, I could see other figures walking or sitting on the sand. Unlike the souls lost in the world of darkness, these seemed at peace, even radiant. Some looked my way and smiled, their faces lit up with a joy that seemed to come from within. It was then that I noticed something strange. I no longer felt tired. All the exhaustion that had been my constant companion for so long just disappeared. I felt light, refreshed, as if I had just woken up from a long, restful sleep. I stopped for a moment and closed my eyes, just feeling. The gentle breeze on my face, the gentle warmth of the sun, the sound of the waves. It was as if each of my senses were sharper, more alive. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in a long time I felt truly at peace. I opened my eyes again and looked around me, still amazed by the beauty of the place. It was then that I noticed something on the horizon. It appeared to be a structure, shining under the golden light. I felt an irresistible curiosity pulling me in that direction. I began walking along the beach, my feet sinking gently into the soft sand. As I got closer, the structure became clearer. It was a lush garden, filled with flowers and plants I had never seen before. The colors were so vibrant that they almost hurt my eyes, but in a good way, like they were awakening something inside me. I entered the garden, smelling the intoxicating scent of the flowers. Each step revealed a new wonder. Flowers that seemed made of crystal, trees with leaves that sparkled like stars, plants that moved gently even without wind. In the center of the garden, I saw something that took my breath away. It was a house, but not an ordinary house. It seemed to be made entirely of crystals that reflected and refracted light in impossible ways, creating a spectacle of colors and sparkles. I stood still for a moment, just admiring the incredible sight. Part of me wanted to run back to the beach, back to the world I knew. But a bigger part, a part I didn't even know existed, compelled me to move forward, to explore this wonderful new world. It was then that I heard a soft voice calling me. "Welcome, Evangeline," said the voice. "We were waiting for you." I turned towards the voice and saw an elderly man standing at the entrance of the Crystal House. He had an appearance that immediately made me think of a fairy tale sage. Long white hair, a beard that reached almost to his waist, and deep blue eyes that seemed to contain all the wisdom of the universe. He smiled kindly at me and made an inviting gesture. "Please come in. We have a lot to talk about." I hesitated for a moment, but something about the man inspired confidence in me. I entered the Crystal House and was amazed. The inside was even more impressive than the outside. The walls seemed alive, changing color smoothly, creating mesmerizing patterns. The old man guided me to a room where there were 2 comfortable armchairs. We sat down and he looked at me carefully, as if he was reading my soul. "You must be confused, Evangeline," he said in a soft voice. "It's natural. What you are experiencing right now is beyond the normal understanding of human beings." I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "Where am I? What is this place?" He smiled. "This is an intermediate realm, a place between the physical and spiritual worlds. You are here because you have had a near-death experience, but your journey on Earth is not yet over." His words hit me like lightning. Near-death experience? So I almost died? The thought filled me with fear and sadness. "My son," I whispered. "Rylan," the old man nodded understandingly. "Your love for your child is what keeps you connected to the physical world, Evangeline. But you are here for a reason. There are lessons you need to learn, truths you need to understand." He stood up and gestured for me to follow him. We walked through the house, passing rooms filled with old books, strange instruments, and objects I couldn't identify. "The universe is much more vast and complex than most people realize," he explained as we walked. "There are many realms, many dimensions beyond the physical world you know. What you are seeing here is just a glimpse of a much greater reality." We stopped in front of a window that looked out on an impossible view, galaxies and nebulae dancing in the emptiness of space. "Everything is connected, Evangeline. Every choice we make, every action we take, has repercussions that go far beyond what we can see or understand." I turned to him, feeling small and insignificant in the face of the immensity he was showing me. "Why am I seeing all this? What should I do with this knowledge?" He smiled again, his eyes shining with ancient wisdom. "You are here to learn, to grow. The lessons you learn here will shape not only your future, but the futures of those around you." He pointed to a distant direction, where I could see a shining castle on the horizon. "There," he said, "you will find the answers you seek. But the path will not be easy. You will have to face your own shadows, your deepest fears." I looked at the castle, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. Part of me wanted to run back to the safety of the world I knew, to the arms of my son. But another part, a part that was growing every moment, yearned to explore more, to understand more. The old man placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Remember, Evangeline, you are not alone on this journey. We are always with you, even when you can't see or hear us." I nodded, feeling a rush of gratitude for this kind guide. "Thank you," I said, my voice shaking a little. I think I'm ready to continue." He smiled once more. "Then go, my dear. Follow your heart and trust your intuition. They will guide you better than any map." With those words, he disappeared, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the view of the distant castle. I took a deep breath, summoning all the courage I could, and took the first step towards the next stage of my journey. I walked for a time that I cannot measure. In this strange and wonderful place, time seemed to flow differently. Sometimes I felt like I had been walking for hours. At other times, it felt like only a few seconds had passed. Finally, I arrived at the foot of the castle that the wise old man had shown me. Up close, it was even more impressive. Its towers rose so high that they seemed to touch the stars. The walls were made of a material I had never seen before. It looked like crystal, but it was brighter, more alive, It reflected and refracted light in impossible ways, creating a spectacle of colors that changed every moment. I approached the entrance, a huge gate made of what looked like pure gold. To my surprise, it opened silently as I approached, as if it had been waiting for me. The inside of the castle was even more impressive than the outside. The floor was made of a material that looked like marble, but it gleamed softly beneath my feet. The walls were adorned with intricate tapestries that seemed to tell stories of other worlds, other lives. I walked through the halls, marveling at each new detail I discovered. There were rooms full of old books, others with musical instruments that I had never seen before. In one room, I saw what appeared to be a map of the universe, but much more complex and detailed than anything I had ever seen on Earth. Finally, I arrived at a large circular room in the center of the castle. In the middle of it, floating in the air, was a huge crystal ball. It gently pulsed with an inner light, as if it were alive. I approached it hesitantly, fascinated and a little scared. As soon as I got close enough to touch the crystal ball, it began to glow more brightly. Suddenly, I saw images forming inside her. I saw my own life unfolding before my eyes. I saw moments of joy, Ryland's birth, my wedding, happy moments with my parents. But I also saw moments of sadness and pain, the end of my marriage, nights when I cried alone, worried about bills and the future. The images continued to flow, showing not just the past but possible futures. I saw versions of myself that had made different choices, taken different paths. In some, I was happy and fulfilled. In others, I was lost and alone. It was an overwhelming experience. I felt tears streaming down my face as I watched my entire life, past, present, and possible futures, unfold before me. Then the images changed again. Now I saw the world from a broader perspective. I saw how my actions, even the smallest ones, had an impact on other people's lives. I saw how a simple act of kindness could set off a chain reaction, affecting lives I would never know. I then understood that every choice we make, every action we take, has a much greater weight than we imagine. We are all connected, part of a much larger whole. When the images finally stopped, I felt exhausted, but also transformed. It was as if I had gained a new perspective, a deeper understanding of not just my own life, but life in general. I turned away from the crystal ball, feeling dizzy and overwhelmed by everything I had seen and learned. It was then that I heard a soft voice behind me. "You've seen a lot, Evangeline," said the voice, "but your journey is not over yet." I turned around and saw a group of beings dressed in white. They emanated a soft light and had a presence that immediately filled me with peace and awe. In the center of the group, there was a figure that stood out. Even before he spoke, I knew who he was. "Welcome, my daughter," said Jesus. His face lit up with a gentle smile. "We have a lot to talk about." I stood frozen for a moment, unable to believe what I was seeing. Jesus was there, right in front of me, smiling at me with a love and compassion I had never experienced before. Around him, the other beings of light seemed to radiate peace and serenity. "Don't be afraid, Evangeline," Jesus said, his voice soft and comforting. "You're safe here." I took a tentative step toward him, feeling a mixture of awe and disbelief. Is that really you?" I managed to whisper. He smiled again, his eyes shining with infinite love. "Yes, my daughter. It's me." Tears started streaming down my face. My whole life, all the fights, all the nights I felt alone and desperate. Everything seemed so small now, in front of this presence. Jesus approached and gently dried my tears. His touch was like a wave of peace washing over me. "I know your journey has been difficult, Evangeline. Being a single mother, working 2 jobs, carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. It hasn't been easy, but you have never been alone. We have been with you every step of the way." His words touched something deep inside me. All the times I had felt abandoned, all the times I had silently cried out for help, they had heard. They were there. "Why?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why show me all this now?" Jesus smiled gently. Because you are ready to see, Evangeline. Ready to understand. The lessons you learn here will shape not only your future but the futures of those around you. He made a gesture and one of the light beings approached. When I looked closer, my heart skipped a beat. It was my father, who had passed away when I was younger. "Daddy?" I whispered, barely believing what I saw. My father smiled, his eyes full of love. "Hello, my little Ava," he said, using the nickname only he used. "I'm so proud of you, my daughter. You've been so strong, so brave." I couldn't contain myself. I ran into his arms, sobbing. He hugged me tight, and in that moment, I felt like a child again, safe and protected. "I missed you so much," I murmured through tears. "I know, darling," he replied softly, "but I never left you. I was by your side the whole time, watching, guiding when I could." We separated and he held my face in his hands. "You have an important mission, Ava. The world needs you." I looked at him, confused. "Mission? What mission?" Jesus approached again. "Evangeline, you were chosen for a greater purpose. The experiences you've had, the struggles you've faced, they've all prepared you for what's to come." He gestured and images began to form in the air around us. I saw my son Rylan grown up and strong. I saw myself, older, wiser, helping others who were going through similar difficulties to the ones I faced. "Your path will not be easy," Jesus continued. "There will be challenges, there will be moments of doubt, but always remember you are not alone. We are always with you, guiding your steps, giving you strength when you need it most." My father shook my hand affectionately. "You have a strength inside you that you can't even imagine, my daughter. Trust it." I looked at the two of them, feeling a mix of fear and determination. I'll try," I promised. Jesus smiled again. "That's all we ask. Now let me show you what the future might hold for you." The images around us became clearer and more vivid. It was as if I was watching a movie of my own life, but a movie that hadn't happened yet. I saw myself, a few years older, in a beautiful and welcoming house. It wasn't a mansion, but it was much nicer than the small apartment Rylan and I lived in. There was a garden in the back, full of colorful flowers and a big tree with a swing. Rylan was there, a teenager now, tall and strong. He smiled as he helped me carry some boxes into the house. I realized we were moving. This was our new home, ours. "That's it," said Jesus softly. "This is the result of your perseverance, Evangeline. You will be able to provide a better home for your son." I felt tears of joy in my eyes. Seeing Rylan happy and healthy, seeing us in a better situation was all I ever wanted. The scene changed. Now I found myself in an office, dressed professionally, speaking to a group of women. I recognized the looks on their faces. They were the same ones I used to see in the mirror. Tiredness, worry, fear of the future. But as I spoke, I saw their faces change. I saw hope appear in their eyes. I saw determination replace fear. "You will use your experiences to help other people," Jesus explained. "His journey will inspire and guide those facing similar challenges." My heart filled with a sense of purpose. The idea of being able to help other people who were going through what I went through was something I had never considered before, but now felt so right. The scene changed once again. Now I saw myself even older, with gray hairs on my temples. I was in a park, sitting on a bench. Next to me was a man I didn't recognize, but the way he held my hand, the way he looked at me, it was love. "Yes, Evangeline," said Jesus, answering my unspoken question. "There is love in your future too. Someone who will understand your struggles, who will support your dreams, who will love you and Rylan unconditionally." I looked at that scene, barely believing it. After everything I had been through, after giving up on the idea of ever finding love again, it was almost too much to believe. "Remember," my father said gently, "this is just one of many possible futures. Your choices, your actions, will shape the path you take." I nodded, understanding. It wasn't a guarantee. It was a possibility. A possibility worth fighting for. The images slowly disappeared, and I found myself back in the crystal castle, surrounded by beings of light. I looked at Jesus and my Father, feeling overwhelmed but also hopeful. "What should I do?" I asked. "How can I make these things happen?" Jesus smiled. "Keep doing what you're already doing, Evangeline. Love your child, work hard, be kind to others and to yourself. But most of all, remember, you are not alone. We are always with you, guiding your steps." My father came over and hugged me once again. "I'm so proud of you, my little Ava. You're stronger than you know." I felt the tears return to my eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude, of hope. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for all of this." Jesus placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Your journey here is almost over, Evangeline. But before you return, there is one more thing you need to see." Suddenly I felt a strange sensation, as if I were floating. I looked down and saw myself. My body was lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to several machines. Rylan was sitting next to me holding my hand, silent tears streaming down his face. "Oh, my baby," I whispered, wanting to reach him, to comfort him. "He can't hear you right now," said a soft voice beside me. I turned around and saw a being of light that I hadn't noticed before. He emanated an aura of wisdom and compassion. "Who are you?" I asked. "I am your spirit guide, Evangeline," he replied. "I'm here to give you some final instructions before you return." I looked back at my body in the hospital bed at Rylan. "I'll be back then?" The being of light nodded. "Yes, your time is not up yet, but before you return there is something important you need to know." He gestured, and I saw a date floating in the air. August 28th, 2024. "This date is important, Evangeline," he said seriously. "It will be a day of great changes in your life. You need to be prepared, both spiritually and emotionally." I looked at the date, feeling butterflies in my stomach. "What's going to happen?" The being of light shook his head. "I can't tell you exactly, the future fully defined, but I can tell you that the choices you make that day will have a significant impact on your future and the future of those around you." He placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Trust your intuition, Evangeline. Listen to your heart, and remember everything you've seen and learned here." I nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. "I'll remember," I promised. The being of light smiled. "I know you will. Now it's time for you to come back." I felt a gentle force pulling me back into my body. Before merging completely, I heard the voice of the being of light one last time. "Remember, Evangeline, you are never alone." And then, darkness. The first thing I felt was pain. It wasn't unbearable, but it was there, a constant reminder that I was back in my physical body. Slowly, I began to hear sounds around me, the rhythmic beeping of machines, muffled voices, the sound of footsteps in the hallway. I opened my eyes, blinking several times to adjust my vision to the bright light of the hospital room. The first thing I saw was Rylan's face. His eyes were red and swollen, but they lit up when he realized I was awake. "Mother!" he exclaimed, his voice a mixture of relief and joy. I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry. Rylan quickly grabbed a glass of water with a straw and helped me drink it. The cool liquid was a welcome relief. "Hi, my love," I managed to say after a moment, my voice hoarse. Rylan started crying, holding my hand tightly. "I was so scared, Mom. The doctor said you were very lucky." Luck. The word echoed in my mind. It wasn't luck, I knew. It was something much deeper, much more meaningful. In the days that followed, as I recovered in the hospital, memories of my experience began to solidify. I remembered the world of darkness, the paradisiacal beach, the crystal castle. I remembered my encounters with Jesus, with my Father, with beings of light, and I remembered the visions of the future and the warning about August 28th, 2024. When I was finally released from the hospital, I was changed. Not just physically. The bruises and cuts from the accident were still healing, but internally. There was a peace in me that I had never experienced before, a certainty that no matter what happened, I was not alone. I started researching near-death experiences, astrology and numerology. I wanted to understand more about what had happened to me, about the meaning of that date that was shown to me. I discovered that August 28, 2024 would be a day influenced by Mercury retrograde, a period known for bringing challenges in communication and finances. The month of August in numerology vibrates with the energy of the number 7, a number associated with spirituality and self-knowledge. All of this seemed to confirm what the being of light had told me, that it would be a day of great changes, a day for which I needed to prepare. As I recovered and slowly got back into my routine, I kept these lessons and warnings in mind. I started meditating regularly, practicing gratitude daily. I started to value time with Rylan more, finding joy in the little things. And even though I still worked 2 jobs, still struggled to pay the bills, there was a new perspective in me. I knew I had a greater purpose, that my journey had meaning beyond what I could see. Today, as I tell this story, August 28, 2024 is still a few months away. I don't know exactly what that day will bring, but I know I will be ready to face it. Because now I know, with a certainty that comes from the depths of my soul, that I am never truly alone. My near-death experience changed my life in ways I'm still discovering. But one thing is certain, I will never be the same Evangeline Prescott again. And for that, I am eternally grateful.